Hello, this video is on remediation of equations with radicals. So, what will you learn in this video? You're gonna first review factoring trinomials with me. There's two different type of trinomials that we're gonna go over. The first one is when a equals 1, and the second one is when a is greater than 1. When we have a is greater than 1, that's the one with the extra step that we'll be talking about. The next thing you're going to learn is how to eliminate radicals in equations. We're going to learn how to eliminate square roots as well as cube roots. And then the last thing we'll talk about is what happens to coefficients in front of radicals when we're eliminating that radical. Okay. So first we're going to do a quick review on your favorite topic, factoring. So on the left side I put some steps, some reminders. So the first one is you always have to set it equal to 0. So for this example here, it is not an equation. So we already know that it equals 0 and that it's set up and ready to go. Okay. The second reminder says you need to put in order exponent 2, exponent 1, right? That one's invisible, and then no variable. So this one again, it's already put in order. Okay, now we're gonna start factoring. The next reminder I put is it is a times c better at to b. Woo! So we're gonna draw our x over here. A is 2, b is 11, and c is 15. So we're doing a times c on top plus b on the bottom. So a times c would be 30, b is 11. So now we're gonna find factors of 30. The factors of 30 include 1 times 30, we're going to move up, right? 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and then 5 times 6. So that means we have 4 options to choose from. Now we're trying to find an option here that adds or subtracts to 11. So 1 and 30 does not work, 15 and 2 does not work, 10 and 3 does not work, but 5 and 6 does. So if I put a 5 here and I put a 6 here, right, it multiplies to 30, but it adds to 11. 5 plus 6 is 11. So you're going to write your answers in 2 sets of parentheses, right? We have a positive 5 and a positive 6. So I'm going to highlight that, right? This answer goes here, this answer goes here. Now, if you look at the problem, we're using the variable x, so I want to make sure that's what I put in my answer. So, this type of problem that we're reviewing is when a is greater than 1, which means we have an extra step. So the extra step is that we need to divide by a in the end. So I'm going to put that. Extra step, divide by a. Okay, so I'm going to divide by a, and a is 2. And usually what happens is one group you can simplify, which will be the second group in this case. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that's the group I can simplify. And then normally the other group you can't simplify, so you take the denominator and you slide it in front of the x. So this is actually going to become 2x plus 5. Now, the reason I went over factoring is because some problems of the radical equations require you to factor. Okay? And we did all of this. Boom, boom, boom. And this is the extra step I was talking about. Okay. Now we're going to start going over the 4 types of problems that you will see on this target. So I tried to put a title at the top that maybe you can memorize that will help you understand what type of problem it is. So the first one we're doing is radical equals 1 term. So sometimes people like to think of 1 term as 1 group, okay? So basically what's going to happen is on the right side of this equal sign, we're just going to have 1 group. Now, it doesn't start off that way. So we have to isolate the radical here, okay, which means we need to get rid of that number that's on the outside, the minus 2. So the traditional way that you guys like to do is you guys like to do add 2 on both sides. Personally, I don't like to do it that way, so I'm going to do it my way, where it's cross the line, change the sign. So I have 3x plus 46. And now I have 3 plus 2, okay? We'll still get the same answer as if you guys do the traditional way. So we should have the square root of 3x plus 46 equals 5, okay? So what I mean here is, here's a radical, equals, and then here's 1 group, okay? Or 1 term. So that's this type of problem. So the whole goal of this type of problem is that we eliminate the radical, and we're going to isolate x. So a reminder is If you're trying to get rid of a radical, the way you can get rid of it is by squaring it, because those are opposites. And once you square that, you can cancel them. So remember, in an equation, if I'm squaring one side, then I have to square the other. So these ones will cancel, and all I have left over is 3x plus 46. And then on this side, I have 5 squared, which simplifies to 5 times 5, which is 25. And then now you're just going to isolate x. So this is now an algebra 1 problem. I do 3x equals 25 minus 46. And then 25 minus 46 is negative 21. Bring down the 3x. This is multiplication. The opposite is division. Again, you have to do it on both sides. So goodbye 3. Can eliminate that. And then a negative divided by a positive is negative, and 21 divided by 3 is 7. Okay, so the whole point of this was that I got x alone, right? And what makes this one different is after I got rid of the radical here, if you notice, I don't have an x squared, okay? There's no x squared in this problem. So you're going to see in a couple of the other types of problems when there is an x squared, that's a hint that it's going to be factoring. So that's why this one we did not factor. Okay, so now let's go to the other type. Okay, so this one we are going to end up with factoring. Okay, so same thing here. I have a radical, right? This is a radical, and equals, and then 2 terms or 2 groups. So I have 1, 2. So that's how I know it's this type of problem. Okay. You're going to do the same steps as before. Draw a line, and we're going to get rid of these radicals by squaring both sides. Okay, this gets eliminated. So now I have 9x plus 9. Now the problem on the right side is there's nothing for me to cancel, so I'm actually going to separate it out. This exponent means that I have 2 of these, okay? So I have 2x plus 1. So here's my first one, here's my second one. We separate it out. Okay, now what we're going to do next is we are going to FOIL or distribute. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now some of you might think that you can do the shortcut method on this one. Unfortunately, you can't because the signs are the same. The only case that you could do the shortcut is if one was positive and one was negative, and otherwise they're exactly the same. So this one, you could do the shortcut, but the one in this problem, you cannot. So now I'm going to copy this down, and then now I'm going to multiply out. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. 1 times x, 1x, and then 1 times 1 is 1. Then we're going to combine like terms. I have 2x, and then bring down the other groups. Now, I see in this problem that I have an x2, so I just want to highlight that. That is your hint. If you have an x2, that means we're going to be going into a factoring problem, okay? Because x squared tells us it's a quadratic. So that means we need to set this equal to 0, which means I need to bring the 9x and the 9 over. So I'm going to keep them organized. So my 9x, I'm now going to put it with the 2x because they're like terms. Okay, and then I'm going to do plus 1, bring that down. And now I'm going to do positive 9 becomes negative 9. Okay, now what we have to do is just simplify. So 2x minus 9x is negative 7x. And then 1 minus 9 is going to be negative 8. Okay, now I have a quadratic. Okay, this is not my final answer, but that's my quadratic. Okay, so now what I have to do is I have to factor. So the same thing that we did earlier. A times C, better add to B. Now the difference here is A is 1. So this is the easier type, which means we do not have the extra step. Okay, so A times C would just be negative 8. And then our B is negative 7. So I'm going to do factors of 8. 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. I only have 2 options. Now I'm trying to get to 7, so the second option won't work, so I'm going to have to do 1 and 8. Now, you need to be careful because you need to make sure that your signs are correct. So I have two options here. I can either do 1 minus 8 or negative 1 plus 8. Which one is going to get me negative 7? Okay, so 1 minus 8 is actually negative 7, and negative 1 plus 8 would be positive 7. So this would be the version that works when 8 is negative, okay? This case, 1 is negative and it does not work, okay? So the 8 is negative. So now I'm going to write out my answer. X plus 1, x minus 8. Now, if they're just asking you to factor, that's what they would say, right? But in this equation, we're trying to solve for x. We want to know what x is. So please do not forget the step. I'm going to put a star here, that you have to change the sign. So x plus 1 becomes x equals negative 1, and then x minus 8 becomes x equals 8. So that's the type 2 problem. All right, so type 3 problem is we have a radical equals a radical, but on the left side, if you notice there's a coefficient in the front. This was the problem that most people got wrong on the test. So you're going to do the same exact steps where we're eliminating the root. So you're going to square both sides. Okay, that's including the coefficient. Okay, you're not going to keep the coefficient on the outside. You can't separate it. So this root does cancel that square, okay? But you still have to square the 3. So this is actually going to become 9. And then we still have what's left over from the root inside, so x minus 1. On the right side, that one's easier. We just have 5x plus 7. Okay, so on the left side, you're going to have to distribute and multiply. So I have 9 times x and 9 times negative 1. So I'm going to get 9x and minus 9. Okay, so for this type, there is no x squared, which means we're not going to factor. We're just going to solve for x. This is an Algebra 1 problem. So I'm going to reorganize my groups, then simplify, and then this is multiplication, opposite division. Going to eliminate and divide. Okay, so that will be the final answer, which is x. Again, I'm going to highlight the part that people messed up is that 3 has to be squared because it's included in those parentheses, which is a 9, okay? And then the inside part of the root, you need to put these parentheses. So that's the type 2 problem. The last type of problem is when we have a cube root. Some people forgot that to eliminate a cube root, you have to cube it. So on the left, I'm going to review. If we're trying to get rid of a square root, we square it, it cancels. If we're trying to get rid of a cube root, we cube it, it cancels. So we're going to cube both sides. The cube root and the cube cancel. We have 9x minus 19 left over. And then we're going to simplify 2 cubed is the same as 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And now we're going to solve as if it's Algebra 1. Okay, this is multiplication, opposite division, eliminate, and then simplify. So x equals 3. So now you have to prepare for your retake. You need to score at least an 80% on this Edpuzzle video, and then next you need to complete the mandatory practice in Delta Math before you do the retake. In order to do the retake, you need to turn in your remediation packet to get the code for the retake. Good luck.